Okay, we are excited to do our Facebook Live today. Welcome to Facebook Lives with B and I, who's a part of our amazing team over here at Loving Without Boundaries. We are thrilled to be here with you today. If you are new to our community here at Loving Without Boundaries, we say welcome. And if you've been here for a while, we just want to say thank you for being here. We do everything we can to make this space feel safe so that you are getting love and support and you feel safe to ask questions. Know that we are a unique community. We are thriving and growing. We are over 13,000, almost 500 people in this growing community. We also have our podcast of the same name, Loving Without Boundaries, our blog on the website, also of the same name, lovingwithoutboundaries.com. And we want you to know that you are welcome here. And we love to do Facebook Lives because our community is unique in that we are led by a relationship coaching team who specializes in helping people who are coloring outside of the lines of heteronormative monogamy so that you get answers, you get support, and we have a whole team here that is supporting you. So if you talk to anybody on the team, like myself, Kitty Chambliss, or B, or any of our admins, please say thank you for being here and thank you for helping keep our group safe. So with that, we have an incredible topic today that is about conscious consent. And I'm going to give the mic over to B here to let her kick us off on our really important topic today. So B, thank you for being here. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Kiri. And I want to thank you, all of you, for contributing to the safety of our growing community. It's absolutely amazing that we already surpassed the 13,000 members. So thank you, everyone, for trusting us to be part of your journey. It's our absolute honor. So today's topic on our bi-weekly Facebook Live is conscious consent, or in other words, informed and enthusiastic consent. Why it's important to talk about this topic? Because conscious consent is one of the cornerstones of healthy non-monogamous relationships. Sometimes we might not think of it as really important, but it's actually absolutely crucial if we want to build ethical and sustainable relationships. So conscious consent is a practice that acknowledges that we are each individual, unique human beings with our own beautiful human needs and desires. And it's a practice that acknowledges that we all have the basic right to make decisions that concern us, to make decisions for our own well-being. So when we practice conscious consent, everyone's well-being in the relationship is supported because everyone can feel seen, heard, understood, loved, and really just it creates a really safe environment where trust flourishes. It supports transparency and accountability. With this present, we can build trust and security within our relationships. We can reduce conflict and misunderstanding because when we practice conscious consent, there's a clarity going on between people around the rules of engagement in the relationships. We don't leave place for misunderstandings and implicit meaning or assumed meaning. We really foster an environment where there's open communication. So there's this real transparency present where everything is detailed, everyone knows what is happening in the relationship, everyone is aware of the implications of participating in certain activities. Just to give you a brief definition of consent, conscious consent, it is the explicit and voluntary and informed agreement between all individuals involved in the relationship. We can talk about, there are many aspects of conscious consent, and it is actually an attitude and is a set of skills. But just to boil it down to 5 main elements, what I like to mention is that conscious consent involves voluntary agreement, from the participants, which means that I may not be 100% content with what is going on in my relationship. For example, my partner says that I wish to have my metamor over at our place. I may not be fully content with that particular event going on in our lives, but I am 100% enthusiastic yes about my participation, and I'm 100% enthusiastic yes about doing the necessary internal work or emotional work or communication work or growth work that needed to be done for me to show up supportive that I consented to. The other important element of conscious consent is that it involves informed decision making that fosters trust. So I have the information available to me in a timely and relevant manner based on what I can say that I'm a yes, I'm a no, or I'm open to negotiation. So there's an absolute clarity going on about what is happening within the relationship. So everyone can have the comprehensive understanding of the relationship, not just the guidelines, but with conscious consent, we really get down to the clarity of the words as well. We often talk about, with Kitty, in this context that the meaning of the words matter, and two people can have very different understanding of the very same word. So just to give you an example, for example, my partner says that I wish to be intimate with this particular new partner. It's absolutely crucial that we clarify what intimacy means, what intimacy looks like, what is it going to be involved, because intimacy can mean entirely different things to me and my partner and my partner's partner. And with conscious consent, as I mentioned before, we really avoid that we jump to conclusions and create disempowering stories because we are aware clearly what is going on. Another really important element of informed and enthusiastic consent is that we recognize that consent is ongoing. So consent is not something static that we agree to 10 points in our agreement and we expect that to be unchanged for the next 10 years. When we practice conscious consent, we honor that needs can change, people can evolve, desires can change, and life circumstances can change. So it might be necessary for us to get back to the drawing board and recreate our agreement with kindness and compassion. So it really involves an open mindset and a teamwork with each other. I really love this quote that one of our cherished clients mentioned, that teamwork makes the dream work. So basically, the foundation of the conscious consent is a beautiful dance with each other where teamwork flourishes and everyone's boundaries and needs are respected. And we acknowledge that everyone might have different limits, different comfort zones, and different emotional needs that make them feel safe, heard, and understood in the relationship. I would like to touch on with Kiri on a few of the implications, what might happen if conscious consent is missing or lacking in the relationship. And I really want to emphasize that everything that I gathered here for today for our conversation is something that I either was on the receiving end of, or sadly I showed up in certain ways with other people where conscious consent, I didn't create space for conscious consent because my skills were lacking. So I really want to highlight that, yes, conscious consent is an attitude. And as I mentioned, it boils down to a set of skills. And once we know better, we do better. So once we learn the necessary skills, we can really show up differently. So I really wanted to emphasize that I absolutely don't want to point the fingers or create the feelings of shame, guilt, and blaming anyone, because conscious consent can be learned. But to touch on a few challenges that can arise when we are unable to show up from the space of informed and enthusiastic consent. So one of the implications can be is when boundaries are being pushed against, like, for example, repeatedly being pushed against and tested or completely ignored, alongside with the withdrawal of consent. So when this happens, when either we or other people keep pushing against our boundaries or just plainly dismiss them, we can really feel insignificant, unseen, unheard. We can really enter into a place of disempowerment and powerlessness, and that can erode trust on the long term. And I really want to emphasize that I'm talking about patterns here. So when something happens, like a boundary crossing happens at one occasion, that can be easily fixed. It might just be a misunderstanding, and we just might get to come together to communicate more clearly. But when there's an ongoing pattern in the relationship, we want to check out and observe what is our part that we contribute to the certain dynamics and what is a relationship growth edge, or what is the growth edge of our partners. Another point that I like to mention, and that is close connection with boundary crossings, is the breaking of agreements, which can be a consequence from one side of the lacking of conscious consent, because we might feel that our agreements were coerced or manipulated, or we created our agreements based on fear, and hence I feel that I have no other option but continue breaking agreements in secrecy. For example, I don't disclose that I already have a new partner, or I don't disclose certain activities that I engage in, because our agreements weren't balanced, it weren't equitable, and this is the only choice that I feel that I have. On the other hand, if we keep breaking agreements, that can contribute to conscious consent missing from the relationship, because if there's no safety, my partners won't feel safe to express themselves, either their needs and desires or their concerns in the relationship. So we can really create a vicious cycle where more of the lack of conscious consent just creates more tension, more pain in the relationship, that in turn contributes to more conscious consent. One of the other ways that we can show up in disempowering ways when the conscious consent is missing is when we fail to give the necessary emotional support to our partners or everyone that is included in the relationship. And that can also come from the lack of conscious consent, the lack of conscious practice, because I'm so tied up in dealing with my own emotional wounds and my own emotional pain, that I either lack the willingness or the ability to show up supportive to my partner. So again, this is gonna erode safety, and people can feel isolated, inadequate. This can erode self-esteem as well, and people also can feel excluded, unimportant, and disregarded when we fail to show up supportive. This can also result in us not doing regular check-ins. So as I mentioned, conscious consent is something that we need to acknowledge that it's reversible. So constant and ongoing check-ins help us be on the same page, help us make sure that consent is enthusiastic, that everyone is a happy yes, taking part in the activities, and we can also bring up concerns. But if no one feels safe in the relationship, then the check-ins may happen, but they might be really superficial, where we really don't address the underlying issues that can create resentment and just so much unnecessary emotional pain in the dynamics. So we're really talking about quite severe consequences in a relationship, and really the lack of joy and fulfillment for everyone involved if we are unable or unwilling to practice the informed and enthusiastic consent with our partners.
Thank you for all of that, B. Just so eloquent and beautiful the way you're expressing all of that. And I love how you're really bringing it to the consequences of not understanding conscious consent, not practicing conscious consent. And I'll just expand on that a little bit on that as well. Just how what we've found from working with many, many people over the last years is that there can be an imbalance of power dynamics, which is another way that this can show up in relationships and cause a lot of unnecessary pain and damage and destruction in relationships, and start to chip away at your sense of well-being. And one way is if there is an imbalance of power, there can feel like there is some coercion. Coercion can show up if somebody is making a lot of demands, maybe even making the same request over and over and over again, but not actually accepting no as an answer. That's really a form of coercion, almost disguised as making requests, but they're not actually requests if we're not willing to actually hear no. That can also feel like a lot of pressure, either pressure to behave in a certain way in the relationship, or pressure to say yes when we really mean no. That's another way that we're taking away consent. Another way this can show up is if there are power dynamics, that is, if there's unilateral decision making, which means if one person is, as B was saying earlier, not checking in with their partner and makes important decisions that may affect their partner without talking to them about it, and maybe that decision's already made, whether that decision is to allow somebody to move into the home without checking with another nesting partner, or a decision to move into somebody else's home without checking with a really important primary or just important relationship, and not doing the due diligence to say, hey, how could this affect you? How do you feel if I make this decision? So those can be very damaging. And as B said earlier, can erode trust and can potentially derail a whole relationship, leading eventually to a breakup or leading to resentments, because resentments can really be relationship killers. And that's not healthy for one's self-esteem and confidence, or healthy for the relationship. Another way power dynamics can show up is ignoring the well-being of all the different partners that could be effective. So that could show up as being dismissive of your partner's other partner, or your metamor's feelings and needs, like just, or pretending that those people don't even exist. That's another way that that could show up, just not really taking other people who are affected, their needs and feelings into account, and maybe only looking at the primary relationship. That could be practicing couple privilege as well. So stepping on other people's feelings and needs and pretending that they don't even exist, which is not healthy. There's something called the secondary Bill of Rights. You know, it's really important to realize that each person has rights in a relationship, and each person has feelings and needs. So it's really important to take that into account. So I wanted to touch on that, but I'd love to have you continue, B. What you're sharing is so important. So I really appreciate all this.
Yes, absolutely. Just to further expand on what you shared, Kiri, when it comes to the areas of respect and privacy, we can also step into certain minefields that can have really dire consequences for the relationship and individuals. And one ways that this can show up is the non-consensual disclosure of private details of the relationships. So in addition to this causing the immediate emotional distress, like feeling betrayed or unheard or unappreciated, or really feeling that I can't trust you anymore because you disclosed something that we did not agree to, that it was okay to let other people know, there can be other consequences as well. For example, jobs losses or financial losses, or children can take away, because we got to take into consideration that non-monogamous relationships are not approved by society at large. So we can run into other consequences as well, other than the immediate emotional consequences that I mentioned. One areas that can show up in several of the manifestation of non-consensual. I don't know why I keep saying that non-consensual. It's my brain keeps putting the consent and non-monogamy together. So on the many areas of non-monogamy, for example, BDSM or swinging, but let's just say with open relationships, is the presence of unwanted physical intimacy. That can include touches, hugs, kisses, or sexual interactions. In addition to us, again, feeling disregarded, unimportant, and violated, this can result in being traumatized as well. So this can cause severe PTSD, plus certain fears can get created in ourselves that we might perpetuate without doing some therapeutic work for decades, because we now fear of getting really close with people because something really traumatic happened. We were violated, our personal space was disregarded. So this is a very serious consequence that can have long-term effects. Another area that it's important to consider and include into conscious consent is regular health checks, health screenings, and informing partners about the possible sexually transmitted diseases that we have. If we fail to do this, again, this can erode trust and safety, plus it can contribute to, again, long-term health effects and also, again, being traumatized. So there can be really, really serious consequences if we fail to step into this space of informed and enthusiastic consent. There's another area that can also rear up its head, and that is the power play without consent. So many of you probably know the power play that can happen in a BDSM context, but sometimes that particular power play that is so characteristic to a sexuality can bleed out into the relationship, and sometimes that can happen without explicit consent, without clearly communicating. It just simply shows up. Again, this can have so many negative emotional effects, and it can put so much distress on the person and the relationship. When this happens, we can feel physically unsafe with someone else. We can feel unimportant, disconnected, and even again unheard and unseen. So everything that is lacking the conscious consent approach can cause serious emotional and serious long-term emotional harm, plus physical harm as well, if certain things bleed out from the sexuality, for example, into the relationship dynamic itself. There can be another area where I might feel that I don't have all the relevant and timely information to my yes in the relationship, and that is when we come across someone, or we show up in ways that we actually know our intention for midterm or long term for the relationship, but it's kept hidden from us, or I keep hiding it from someone in the hope that the relationship dynamic will change. For example, someone says, I start dating someone and they say that, okay, I'm absolutely 100% yes in CNM relationship, but actually their intention and their hope is that it's going to turn into a monogamous relationship later on. So when this happens, when the truth comes out, the feeling of betrayal is one of the emotions that we might feel, or trust issues can get created in us. Like, I can't trust anyone intentions, can't trust anyone words. So with that, just to sum it up, if the approach of informed and enthusiastic consent is missing from our relationships, we really can end up in unnecessary and painful cycles. And there's absolutely no need to live in that particular pain. As I highlighted it earlier, it is an attitude to show up these ways, these mindful ways. And it also includes a set of skills that any of us can learn, similarly to how I learned what conscious consent means and how can I show up from this place with anyone in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for that, B. And I want to just second what you said there, that it's very empowering to know that any of us, if we are willing to invest our time, our energy, our resources into getting the skills that we need, anyone can learn these skills, to learn how to empower yourself, to learn how to be able to communicate in healthy ways, to build your inner confidence and your strength, and empower yourself to be in healthy relationship dynamics, even when you are coloring outside of the lines of heteronormative monogamy. Anybody can do this. We do this every single day. We eat it for breakfast and help our clients all the time with these things. And if they can have great success and be in really healthy dynamics, and a lot of times save their relationships. We've saved over 30 families from breaking up, from divorce, and ruining their whole families and having to find new places to live by doing this work. So if you are looking to get a roadmap for designing healthy and happy relationships in a way that feels authentic to you, and you are looking for support, feel free to go to this link that I just put on the screen, which is lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. And when you go to that link, it'll just take you right into my calendar. You'll just find a time slot that works for you. And I am delighted to have a free breakthrough session with you where we will talk about what are some of your biggest challenges And more importantly, we'll talk about where you would like to go. And if I feel like myself and our team here can help you close that gap from where you are now to where you want to be, we'll put our heads together and we'll talk about a game plan to do just that. And more importantly, you'll get a lot of clarity and value from that conversation that'll be incredibly important for you to have. So if that's you, if you are looking for support, again, go to lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply, because this is one of the most often skipped steps, is doing the prep work to be in really healthy dynamics when you are considering opening up your relationship. And you don't have to unnecessarily suffer on that journey, because help is right here. This group is unique in that we are led by professionally trained relationship coaches who are here to support you. And it is our honor and our privilege to do so. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And B, any parting thoughts you'd like to share?
Yes, I would really just want to highlight that conscious consent is really important practice, is the heartbeat of flourishing and beautiful explorative relationships. So with every enthusiastic yes that we say, with every healthy boundaries that we set or negotiate, and with every expression when either ourselves or our partners hear that I hear you, I'm here for you, we really deepen intimacy and we create a beautiful space where trust flourishes, then there's joy and fulfillment, and we can really unlock long-term relationship magic. So if any of what we talked about today resonates with you, know that there's absolutely a way out. It really boils down to learning certain skills that no one taught us while we grew up. It's really similar to boundaries, and actually the practice of conscious consent is very closely tied to boundary work. So yeah, there's no shaming around that we don't know certain of these skills, but there's definitely a space if you want to educate yourself, if you want to step into growth and beautiful exploration. There's definitely a space to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, B, for bringing up this really important topic, for your time, and for being a valuable member of our team. I super appreciate you. And with that, we will sign off here and just say thank you again for being part of our community. If you are looking for more help, again, feel free to book a call with me if you want to have a free breakthrough session. We also have a free masterclass that we do once a month, and you'll find information about that under the events tab. And also, any friend of yours is a friend of ours. If you think they could find value by being part of our community, feel free to have them join our private online Facebook group. Or also, you can feel free to listen to our podcast, Living Without Boundaries, or subscribe to our newsletter and our blog over at the website, lovingwithoutboundaries.com. And don't forget, there's also resources under the files tab here. We are absolutely committed to helping you on your journey, because we really care about you living the best life that you can with as little unnecessary suffering as possible, so that you feel empowered and live a blissful, beautiful life. So with that, take care for now, and we will talk to you soon on our next Facebook Live. Bye-bye.